Marc Sabatella from Mastering MuseScore here. Welcome to the MuseScore Café. So you may notice I am coming to you from a different location here. We got some stuff going on. Had to be home for instead of in my studio. So hopefully everything goes smoothly. But I'm enjoying the nice fall weather here. So this is my regular series to talk about some aspect of MuseScore, creating music using MuseScore, and this is the first Wednesday of the month. So as usual, we are doing the Ask Me Anything as our theme. So I have nothing in particular as a topic. It's always just totally open to ask me whatever you want, and so go ahead. I always have some random things that I can tell you about that I'm always happy to be talking about. But the other thing, whenever I do these sessions, the Ask Me Anything sessions, I'm always going to encourage you to use the little emojis down here and use the question mark emoji. Mine is there under frequently used, but if you just type question into that little search box, you can put a question mark here. Ask me anything. That way, it just stands out a little bit more when you have a question, so it doesn't get kind of lost in the other comments. And by all means, if I look like I'm missing something, if there's a question that comes in that I'm missing, let me know. So, perfect. Kevin has a question here, nice simple one. It's how to add a vertical frame after the last measure of music. So let's talk about that. There are two commands in MuseScore relating to that subject of, there we go, two commands about adding frames, and if you want it at the end, you don't actually need, let me see, if I go to the plus menu here, frames, notice it says append vertical frame or horizontal frame or text frame or whatever kind of frame you want. So that's what you're going to want. Append doesn't require you to select anything. It always just goes to the end of the score. So that's as simple as that. Even if you've got something selected over here, append, if I append another vertical frame, it just puts in another vertical frame at the end. So append always goes at the end. You can also, by the way, let me add some notes here. You can insert, like when I click the plus here to insert a frame, notice that there's an option to insert frames, and if I insert a horizontal frame, it goes in front of that measure, but you can also insert one after that measure if you want. And you can't do that from the plus menu, and I don't think you can do it from the add menu either, but you can do it a couple other ways, and so while I wait for other questions, I'll show you that. If right now I go to the palettes and click the layout palette. No, wait a minute. I think maybe not for frames. I think only for measures. I take it back. Only for measures can you do that. But let's say I want to insert a measure after this one. So let's say that I want to insert a measure after that one with the C's. I'm going to go to the Properties panel and say Insert Measures, and then it will allow me to insert either after the selection or before the selection or at the start or at the end. So inserting measures can be done either before or after the selection, but I think in frames it's either end of score or before the selection. So there's that. While I wait for other questions coming in, I'm going to expand on, I did a quick tip in the newsletter this week about accidentals, and I talked about entering them by pre-selecting the accidental, right? You select the accidental, then you enter notes. And I did them by keyboard shortcut, but you can do it by clicking, and if I click, you'll notice when I hover my mouse here, it's showing that sharp is going to be there. After I enter one note, notice the sharp sign turns itself off. That's because you don't need more sharp signs normally. You'd normally only put a sharp sign on the first note, so it normally turns itself off. The other way of entering accidentals is if you enter a note first, like D, I can press the up arrow to make it D sharp, or the down arrow will make it D natural, down arrow again, D flat. So up arrow will give you accidentals after entering your note. And that's great. If I enter an E right now and then down arrow, it'll make it an E flat. But if I enter E up arrow, it's not going to make it E sharp. It's going to make it F because F is in the key. It actually, if you were in a key that had a bunch of sharps, it would allow you to do E sharp. But it tries to be smart about if the note, when you're up arrowing or down arrowing, if the note you're arrowing to is in the key, it will spell it that way. So there are definitely times, like if you want an E sharp in your music, the way to do it is sharp and then E, and then you get it. So I know y'all have more questions. I know there's some more questions. Y'all have no shortage of questions normally when I'm talking about other things, so I'm looking forward to seeing what else I can answer here. Okay, I'm going to just keep talking about accidentals. I'm not going to talk about accidentals. I'm going to answer Colin's question. The only thing I'll say about accidentals right now is there's your double flat, there's your double sharp. They don't have keyboard shortcuts, but as I demonstrate very often, if you go to Edit, Preferences, and then Shortcuts, there's a search box there. If I type double into the search bar, you'll see there's the double flat and double sharp commands here. So if I click double flat and then define, I can define my own custom shortcut for whatever I want the double flat command to be. All right, so let's see what Colin's asking here. The anacrusis. Yeah, so this is a good question. Let's say that I want there to be a pickup, anacrusis, in here, and it's going to be 3/8 long. I'm going to right-click this measure, go to Measure Properties, and choose its duration as 3/8, and say Exclude from Measure Count. Those are always the things you want to do. MuseScore basically has this wrong. Notice the default rests are showing a quarter rest followed by an eighth rest. This is that's because MuseScore doesn't know that this. It could be smart enough to say, hey, it's the first measure of the score, I should treat it like a pickup. But basically, if you have an incomplete measure, then MuseScore doesn't know offhand whether that's meant to be the first few beats of a measure or the last few beats of a measure. A pickup is basically the last few beats. So this is incorrect rests. So if you want rests, it should be the eighth rest followed by the quarter rest. That is the correct rest. So you should always need to correct these rests. And then the same will happen with beaming. If you enter 3/8 notes right now, oops, 4, C, B, D, this is actually not incorrect to have 3/8 notes all beamed together as a pickup, but it's going to fool someone into thinking it's a triplet. So you really want to show the beat when you have 3/8 notes beamed together. If anything is at all ambiguous about it, you want to show the beat. The B here is the note that's on the beat. So I want to break the beam there. So I'll come over to the Properties panel, click where it says Beam. I've selected the B, and then in the Properties panel, I click where it says Beam, and then click this icon here that says Break the Beam to the left. And this is the proper beaming so that we can see the note on beat 4. All right, so let's see. So is it okay to beam all 3 notes? So yeah, that is the question. I would recommend against it personally. It can be okay. Like for instance, what if there was an eighth rest here and then 3/8 notes? In this case, this can be okay to beam those eighths together because the eighth rest clues you in that this isn't a triplet. But 3/8 notes followed by an eighth rest is not cool because when you start playing this, you don't see the rest yet. So some editors will use that rule that says if there's an eighth rest to start the pattern, it's okay to beam the other 3 together, but not if the eighth rest is at the end, or if there's no rest at all because it's a pickup. I tend to just break mine already. And it's absolutely true that without the 3, it's not a triplet. But the thing is, like, think about like say Moonlight Sonata. I almost said Moonlight Serenade. Moonlight Sonata is all triplets, and there's a triplet marked at the beginning in the first measure, and then he stops writing triplets because it's just assumed that every time you see 3/8 notes after that, it's a triplet. So it's a little scary to rely on that because there are definitely times when 3/8 notes beamed together are meant to be interpreted as a triplet, even though there's no three there. So it's like a courtesy accidental. I just wouldn't rely on it. That's my question. That's my observation. All right. So there you go. So that, I think then Colin, I have answered, or Colin, but I'll say Colin, that I've answered the question there. Jeff is talking about ceviche, except the last thing, the slur. Uh, you know, Oh, okay. So Jeff, I would ask you, Jeff Davis is saying that you entered ceviche, and when you started messing with the slur, it messed up the formatting. I can totally believe that. In fact, I know about a bug that exists if you have a note over a beamed arrest, no, a beam over a rest while using cross staff notation. It can do that. So if you've done that, if you've beamed over a rest and you have cross staff notation in that same measure, that can cause those little glitches where extra space gets added for no good reason. So I'm going to guess that you've either triggered that bug or a similar one. So I'm going to ask that you post your score as is to the discussion and support space, or the support forum on MuseScore.org, and then someone can take a look and see if we need to get a bug in there. All right, so Mariella is asking a nice simple question. If you want to change the speed at the beginning, well, that's simple. Tempo markings are how you change the tempo. So if when I created this score, I didn't enter a tempo marking, and I probably should have, but I just didn't. I can go to the palettes and the tempo palette here and add myself a tempo marking. So if I add myself a quarter note equals 80 and I don't like the 80, I can just change that to 144 or whatever I want. So there you go. So tempo marks are how you change tempo. So because that's how the person reading the score needs to see the tempo marking also. So there you go. um, uh, Dave is also talking about the tripling. Is that stopping of marking triplets normal in scores after the first bar or two? Yeah, it kind of is. I mean, to some extent, it's lazy, but it's also, yeah, it saves visual clutter. But I say lazy because, well, if there's that many triplets in the piece, would you have been better off calling it 12/8 instead of 4/4, or 6/8 instead of 2/4, or 9/8 instead of 3/4? Maybe, maybe not, but it's at least worth considering. But yeah, no, it is pretty common if you've got a 4/4 piece with a lot of triplets like Moonlight Sonata, that you would stop putting the three in at some point. It's pretty common at all. Um, so Graham is asking about NVDA, and I saw a comment that I'm going to come back to that Christopher asked. NVDA is a screen reader. I don't know what the initials stand for. So it is the mechanism by which a blind user has the contents of the screen read aloud. NVDA is an open source screen reader available for Windows. Windows also comes with one called Narrator. So if anyone is on Windows and wants to play with screen readers, you can just turn on Narrator and hear things for yourself. Linux has one called Orca. Mac OS has one called VoiceOver. So the question that Christopher has is about adding keyboard shortcuts with NVDA, and I wish I had a better answer for you, but unfortunately, the dialogue for defining keyboard shortcuts has an issue where you can't navigate to the OK button. There's no way to navigate to the OK button in that dialog. So it's not a screen reader issue per se, it's a keyboard navigation issue. Every keystroke you try to enter gets interpreted as a keyboard shortcut. So if you try to press tab to get to the OK button, it thinks you're trying to enter tab as a shortcut, and same with enter and so forth. So it's a bug. It's a bug that's been reported and really needs to be fixed, and yeah, it might be one of those bugs I have to go in and fix myself. I haven't totally retired from development, but there's other people who are doing it better and faster than me. But if there's things that I just know are gonna be something that is going to be more important for me to see fixed than anyone else. I'll go in and try to fix it if I can, if it's something simple. And I think that might be relatively simple. Okay, so I'm scrolling through to see about anything else, but I am actually going to open Ceviche just since it came up and see what happens here if I open Ceviche, because it could be that, when I originally did that score was like during a beta release of MuseScore 4. Lots of bugs have been fixed since then, but the behavior of beaming over rests has changed since then, and it's possible it's a new bug that I will be able to see for myself, perhaps. So I'm going to find out. I'm going to open Ceviche, and I'm going to mess with that slur and see if I can get what Jeff is describing to happen. So let's see. Jeff is describing the slur. He's trying to move. Oh, okay. I actually think that's actually something different. So instead of moving the slur, let me show you how you should be doing that. Instead of moving the slur, you want to enter it with click and control click. This is going to happen anytime there's basically. So I'm going to remove this slur. I'm going to click it and delete it. I'm going to click the first note, control click the last note, and then press S. And it just adds the slur. Now, that slur got added above. In my original, I had moved it below because I thought it worked better that way. So I'll press X to move it below. So that absolutely works. If you click one note, control click another note, it will add a slur between those notes. And it's better than shift clicking in some cases because, well, let's see. If I clicked that note and shift clicked this other note, this actually might work too. Let's find out. Yeah, that actually worked just as well, to select the range and then press S. But the danger is if you do that and there's multiple voices, it's going to add multiple slurs. Ooh, so yeah, that's that is why if I want to add a slur in this measure, I want to add that slur on top here. I don't do it by selecting the full measure, because if I did that, it would add it to voice 1 and voice 2, and I really only want it in voice 1. So, so hopefully that helps. But it is true that if you start trying to get fancy and drag slurs around, I will totally believe that weird things might happen. Yeah, depending on how you do it. But yeah, if you attach your score, we can check. But I don't recommend dragging slurs around at all. But yeah, like that. Okay, that added space. Yeah, so yeah, don't do that. Just don't drag slurs like that. Just add them directly by making your selection first. You can also do it by adding the slur just by pressing S and then using Shift right to extend the slur. And once it's in the right place, press X to flip it down, and you're good. So Christopher, yes, there is a file you can edit by hand. So let's take a look at that. So let's and the thing is, I vaguely recall that there's an issue with this as well. So, but let's find out. Let's find out. I'm going to go Alt E to open the edit menu, up arrow to open preferences, click, and then I'm going to get over to the shortcuts thing. I'm trying to do this all keyboard, so I make sure this works. Shortcuts. And then what I want to do is tab until I get to the export button. So tabbing gets me to the import button, then the right arrow gets me to the export button, and then I can press enter, and it gives me a prompt for a file name. And then you enter a file name, and you can save your XML file. And that's what it'll be, as an XML file. So I'll call it shortcuts.xml, and it looks like it's just defaulting to my home folder, which isn't good, not what I would want. So I will go somewhere more reasonable. But in any case, if you eventually get yourself to the save button and save that thing, oh, there's already one there, so I won't do it. But anyhow, that import button, the export button will allow you to save an XML file, and the import button will allow you to load that file. But the issue is that the file will only show the shortcuts that are actually already defined. It won't show you empty entries for the commands that don't have them. So it's going to require some work to figure out how to actually edit that file correctly and get the correct command name in, because you won't necessarily know the right command name. But let me actually show you what that file looks like, because why the heck not, right? I'm going to go, it said it was in my home folder, so it must be here under Linux files right here. Looks like I created one on August 14th. So this file shows the shortcuts, and it has the command key where it says key select staff above. That's the command name, and then seek for sequence, shift up. That's the syntax for it, but it only has the commands that actually already have shortcuts. So like if I search for double in here, there's double duration, paste double, but that's it. There is no empty entry here for double flats. You would have to know the name of the double flat command. And it might be double dash flat, but there's a good chance it's not. So somehow we would have to get a list of all the commands, and it's available in the MuseScore source. We'd be able to figure it out that way. But in any case, I'm sorry to say there's not a good answer to that question. All right, so let's see. What else I may have missed here. So again, if you put the big red question mark at the beginning of a question, it makes sure that I is a little more likely to see it. Et al. In Allison's pointing after the 3 to say yes, or simile is the other thing. Something that means, simile is the Latin term, et al. Is Latin. No, simile is Italian, et al. Is Latin. That's what I'm saying. And they mean keep doing the same thing you were doing. Et al. Literally means and more and something, but it is sometimes used to mean the same thing, more of the same, basically. Oh, the next bar. Oh, this straight line, Jeff. No, that's not a slur. This is what's called a note-anchored line. This isn't meant to be a slur. That's a great question, and so I'm glad you brought it up. This line here is meant to show that the left hand moves from this note to that note. So it's not a slur, it's just indicating the change in where the left hand is. You see this a lot in fugues also, if there's like an inner voice of a fugue that moves from the bottom staff to the top staff. It's just there to kind of help you understand the logic of the music. So the way that is entered is click that note, control click the other note, so it's still a case of selecting a pair of notes. And now I'm going to go to add lines, note anchored line. Bam. That adds a line directly from the center of one note head to the center of the other. Now that isn't really what I want. I don't want it on the center, so I'm going to select the handle there and use down arrow to move it down a little bit, right to move it to the right a little bit, tab to get to the other handle, left arrow, up arrow, etc. So I'm kind of visually dragging that line so it doesn't go all the way to the center of the note. Now there was a thing about about invisible beat per minute changes, but yeah, I wouldn't recommend that because if someone's reading your score normally, they need to see this. The only time you would ever need that was in MuseScore 3, before there was retardando and accelerando built into MuseScore. You would have to use invisible tempo changes just to get a rallentando. But in MuseScore 4, that's no longer necessary. If I want a rallentando in here, I can just select the range that I want it to apply to, come over to the palettes, and then under tempo, you will see rallentando, retardando, allargando, accelerando, etc. Right? So if I add rallentando here, now when I play this, it should. I don't know if you can hear the playback. Right? It hopefully slowed down if you heard that correctly. I turned my volume down, and I don't know if it turned it down for you or not. Let me know. So yeah, invisible tempo markings were necessary to get that effect in MuseScore 3, but they aren't anymore. So there you go. And so I'm looking for where Mariella's question was that people are responding to about the changes, because apparently she must have followed up on that, but I only saw the initial question about just at the beginning. So maybe Dave was just following up in case you meant change. Like, yeah, certainly if you want a tempo change, if you want like to start this piece at 138, but then at another place just to suddenly change to another tempo, you'll just add a new tempo marking. Change to Largo here, and then it'll just suddenly change the tempo. And it just suddenly changed the tempo right there. So that's how you would normally indicate a tempo change with just adding the new tempo marking wherever you want it. But the same thing is true even when it's, if it's a rallentando, select the range and add the line. Okay, so let me keep scrolling through here to see, can you specify the start and end? I think that's probably saying tempo. Come on, there we go. You don't do it by beats per minute. So the rallentando is going to start with whatever the current tempo is, which is the normal interpretation. Rallentando means gradual change. So you don't normally change at the beginning. If you wanted there to be a change right abruptly, right at the beginning, you could certainly add another tempo marking, but I wouldn't make it invisible. I'd make a visible one because humans would need to see that too to understand it. So with the rallentando, there's a default amount of the slowdown, and it's basically 75%. So when I come to rallentando, go over to properties, now you'll see under the playback, you'll see there's an amount of the change. You might wish that instead of a percentage, you could just select an absolute beats per minute, and that's been requested, and maybe it'll happen at some point. But I will say the advantage of the percent is then if you change the initial tempo, the percent is still correct, right? So I would encourage you to think in terms of that percent so that it continues to scale as you perhaps change the initial tempo. But yeah, there is an open request to make it possible to just set an end tempo. But for now, it's 75. It defaults to 75%, but you enter whatever percentage you want. And there's also this thing called the easing method: normal, ease in, and ease out. And this all controls, like, let me delete that Largo. This all controls whether it starts slowing down a lot right away or whether it is gradual at first and then slows down more towards the end. So you can just play with that. So that version there, I'm not even sure what I did there. I guess I picked ease in. I play with these. It's kind of random. So, and yes, this idea of shaping these is absolutely coming to MuseScore, along with volume changes, right? Dynamics, hairpins, crescendos, diminuendos. There will be a feature coming, probably not for 4.2, although some of the work I see has started, but I'm guessing it's more a 4.3 thing, where there will be these things called automation lanes, which is a concept borrowed from digital audio workstations, DAW or DAW, that you can basically overlay a little picture and then draw in a curve or use whatever, either the mouse or keyboard or whatever, to kind of shape the change graphically, so that you can say, this is how I want that slowdown to happen, this is how I want the volume change to happen, etc. So automation lanes are absolutely coming to MuseScore for, I think, within the year. So there you go. So Dave, I think that linear, otherwise that ease in and ease out is that, but you'll have to experiment with it because frankly, I think if I put in, let's just do this. I'm gonna put in a more extreme change, make it 50%, and see what this sounds like. All right, so that was normal. Nelson's question is easy. 75% means it ends at 75%. Doesn't mean slows down by 75%. It means the final tempo is 75% of where it started. So the end tempo is 75% of the start tempo. All right, so that was the kind of default. Oh, no, that was 50%, but under normal. I'm going to try ease in now, 50%. So So I feel like ease in didn't slow down much to begin with, and it kind of packed all the slowing down in towards the end. I'm going to try it now where I tell it ease out. And I'm going to guess it's going to be the other way around. It's going to do most of the slowdown right away. Yeah, it's already very slow, right? So ease in, ease out, control the kind of rate of that change. It's still slowing down from, to a final tempo of 75% of the original, but does it do most of it slowing down at the beginning, this kind of curve, or does it do most of it I should say this kind of curve versus this kind of curve? And the default is more of a linear curve. So, did I miss anything else? If I've missed anything else, feel free to call my attention to it. But I think I'm still catching things here. So what else would I want to tell you about these tempo changes? Okay, here's a thing to know about the tempo change markings. They are not super sophisticated. If you add a tempo change over a long period of time, like say 8 measures, you will hear it in a series of discrete steps. What's really happening is it's changing the tempo in basically 4 steps. So it does 1 notch slower, then a 2nd notch slower, a 3rd notch slower, and then a 4th notch slower, and then it's done. So it's 4 steps to the slowdown. If you're slowing down over the course of a measure or two, that's fine. You'll never notice that that's anything but smooth. But if you do this tempo change over a longer period, then yeah, you will notice that it feels like not as smooth as it could be. That's also been requested as a enhancement. So and I have no doubt that that'll happen someday. It's probably just a trivial 1-line change of the code to make it smarter. But for now, what you could do is use the invisible tempo changes tricks to manage the tempos yourself in cases like that. You could play with things like that, or you could play with adding invisible ralentandos within ralentandos. I haven't done that, and I would encourage anyone who's really curious about such things to play with that sort of thing. So Dave's asking about the automation lanes and how the controls will work. Well, that I can't tell you, not because I'm under a non-disclosure. It's still being designed, still being, the implementation has not really begun. The design has been posted, and an initial specification and some of the header files. There's some of the initial work has been done, but how it's eventually going to look, I couldn't say. I would doubt, though, that the initial version of it would work with any external hardware. Certainly, it's not going to require any external hardware. I would expect it to work primarily like shaping a slur, by moving control points. I would expect that to be the case. All right, yes, Frank, this is indeed Ask Me Anything day. So I'm going to download your score and then check out your question. So let's download his score and see what's going on. Here's my test folder, Choir One Voice, and let's open that thing. Open that thing in MuseScore. I recently rebooted my computer and had to reset a few things, and so my cloud-based... Oh, did I tell you? I don't remember if I told you guys, but I'll tell you now. Last week, I accidentally deleted my entire scores folder. Yeah, I think I mentioned that during office hours. Oops. I accidentally deleted my entire scores folder, and this is got all my scores going back to MuseScore 1, or at least 2 in that folder in various different subfolders. Luckily, they're all backed up to the cloud through Google Drive, but it does mean that now files I haven't used recently are not wanting to come back. So I don't know what's going on here. Why is that folder not opening? I've opened that folder many times. What is going on? Why is my test folder not opening? That's not good. Scores. Test. Come on, open. All right, let me read the question and let it think about opening. So First title page is missing. Okay, so you're asking about templates. So yeah, it was scary, Mariella. It was very scary because I noticed it while it's deleting. It takes a long time to delete thousands of files, and so I interrupted it then mid-delete. And then I'm like, have I made things worse? Because now some of them are deleted and some of them are not. And I know how to restore files, but is the restore going to work okay given that some are deleted and some are not? And bottom line is, yes, 10 minutes later, 15 minutes later, my heart had started beating normally and all was well again. So, ooh, yes, so deleting source code for product. Yeah, that's a similarly scary proposition. All right, so Frank now is asking though about using this as a template. So that might change things. Uh, so Frank, tell me if you're, well, I guess I'll find out soon enough when the score opens if it was created in MuseScore 3 or 4. Most scores created in MuseScore 3 will open fine in MuseScore 4, but templates tend to be dicey. So this was created in MuseScore 4 because I didn't get the warning. Oh, you've got all this fancy stuff. Yeah, that's not going to work. Templates only reproduce a few things. They reproduce um, the list of the instruments, their settings as far as the staff settings that go with those instruments, all your style settings, all your page format settings, so things like staff size and margin size, page size, etc. Those things get reproduced from the template, and a couple things about the specific uh, title frame, and I can't remember what specifically about it. I think the position of elements within it or something like that. But if you've added additional frames, they do not come over in a template. So you would have to not use the template mechanism. You'd have to just open the score and then put save as to make new scores from this template. Or save a copy. No, yeah, I would use save as, so it just immediately saves it under the new file name. Templates do not copy over. This is all considered content. Content isn't copied. So just the structure of the score and a few details, the size of the first frame, and that's about it. So yeah, that's just basically a limitation here. All right, so unfortunately, yeah, that just is the story there. Um, Christopher is struggling with Control F. And mentioning what happens when you use, so Control F is the find command. Um, it puts you at the top staff, but yeah, unfortunately that is true. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to use Control F on my uh, MuseScore Café, and I'll use Control F and go to measure 4. So now I'm on measure 4, and it goes to the top staff because it doesn't have any concept of where else to go, because it could be looking to see, do you currently have something selected, and is it only one staff that's selected, and if so, select that measure in that staff. It could be a little smarter about that. But most of the time when you use Control F, you may or may not have anything selected at all, and what you have selected might not be a single staff, and in any case, what you have selected may or may not relate to where you're trying to go. So I would I don't know that it's likely that even if we did make an enhancement where in the specific case where you had a single staff selected, Control F might stay on that same staff. Yes, that's possible, but instead I think you really want then the keyboard commands to then move down. So Alt down is normally the command to move selection down, but it doesn't work with a range selection. But I'm going to try something here. If I use shift down, oops, right now I hit alt. Shift down will extend my range selection down staff by staff. And then when I get down to the staff that I want, say it's the base staff, I want to see what happens if I press escape now. And now, if I resume navigation with Alt-Right, am I on the base staff? No, I'm not. I'm nowhere. Ah, that sucked. All right, well, that wasn't very useful. So, Christopher, I don't have a great answer for you there. If you use Alt-F to go, say, to this time I'll go to measure 6, or so, not Alt-F, Control-F to go to measure 6. I think what you're going to want to do is then press escape and then Alt Use Alt down to start just moving down the staves. I don't have a better answer for you there. Um, so, uh, Allison is experiencing a problem with a file from MuseScore Workshop where it's not playing, and I guess uh, um, I would need to know the specific file. Maybe there's something wrong in that file, and I don't know. So if you post a link to that particular file, I can look it up. But basically, what you're describing shouldn't be possible. So yeah, once you download a score, if I play it, it should play, and if you close it and reopen it, it should still play. If I had muted all the staves, um, then I would expect it to not play and continue to not play even if you close and reopen it. So something seems to have gone wrong with that score or something, but I guess I don't know what. So Christopher, I think this is a great idea about Control F 420 for Measure 4 Staff 20. That is a pretty brilliant idea. Have you used the GitHub issue tracker system to submit issues? I can't remember if you have or not, but I think that would be a brilliant issue to submit. Because we have a syntax. For people who don't know, Control F is, let me have the score in focus. Control F is the find command. So it puts a find box at the bottom. If you type a number, like say 13, it jumps to measure 13. Or if you type a letter, like A, it'll jump to rehearsal mark A, if you have a rehearsal mark. You can also jump to a particular page by saying P3, and now it jumps to page 3. So there's a little syntax here. Also, if you use numbers as your rehearsal marks, you can type R and a number. It'll go to that rehearsal mark rather than that measure number. So there is kind of a syntax built into this find command. So adding a way to do measure to specify the staff number is a great idea. I love it. Note anchored line. So let's figure it out. Note anchored line is in the add menu. So I'm going to go select myself some notes. Let me go back to Ceviche here. And I will again delete this line. And I will again select the two notes that I want. And then you're going to go to add lines, node anchored line. That's where it is. Same location in MuseScore 3 and 4. It's possible the lines, the order of the things in the menu might be different, but note it's add lines, node anchored line. It is not available on the palette because first of all, it was sort of an experimental feature that snuck in when no one was looking, but it's a useful feature, so no one's going to take it out, I don't think. But I think they were afraid to put it in the palette because you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between that and a regular line, and then people would start misusing it. So anyhow, that's the story. It's under the add menu, add lines, node anchored line. So do that, you get your line. So Christopher, I have not yet done. Oh, you have. Okay, so Christopher, let me give you a link to that thing and let you try this. And so this will also apply to anyone else who has any interest in submitting bugs or feature requests. The process for submitting bugs is we are using GitHub, which is where the MuseScore source itself is. And so so this is the main page for MuseScore on GitHub, and then I'm going to click where it says Issues, and I'm going to paste this link into the chat. This link is also available within the course. If you're in the Mastering MuseScore 4 course, you'll see the link posted at the top. But I'm going to post the link here. So this is the issue tracker. And there's been several other blind users that have successfully submitted issues here, so I know this site is reasonably accessible. So the issue tracker has a search box in it here that allows you then to search to see if there's an existing issue for this. And so I'm going to try searching for find command measure and just see if anyone else has requested anything like it. None of these are really, I'm going to delete the word command from that, just say find measure, just to see if anyone else has, looks like they've selected or that they've requested anything similar. I don't see anything. But in any case, what I would say is the developers are not keen on people using the issue tracker uh, until it is absolutely sure that um, that there's an actual bug and that it's not a user misunderstanding or a problem inherent in that score being corrupt or something like that, that there's an actual bug in MuseScore. So, and they certainly don't want people using the issue tracker just to ask questions about how to use MuseScore. So they're asking that people first clear things by posting to the forum, or I'm saying if you post to the discussion space in the course, in the Mastering MuseScore course. But once I've kind of confirmed, or someone else who's like, an experienced user confirms an actual bug, then you can come to the GitHub issue tracker and click the new issue button. And then when you click the new issue button, you'll see bug report feature request. So I'm going to click where it says get started next to feature request, and I'm going to start typing one in here that says find command should allow you to specify a particular staff. And I'm gonna fill this one out for you because I agree with this one totally, and I'm gonna see if I can fill that out. So sound stop if you insert a measure. Now that I've never heard of before, and I just inserted a measure in my test score. Let me try that again. Here was my test score. Let me play. If I insert a measure, I'm just going to press the insert key. Oops, that's not the insert key. That's the delete key. Shift. I don't have a physical insert key on my keyboard. It's Shift function backspace is how I get my insert key. You might have something similar on yours. But I'm going to insert the measure and now play. So insert didn't stop playback for me. There could be some very specific case in which that happens. If you've got a score in which that happens and it's not like 100% reproducible or whatever, go ahead and post it to either the support forum on musescore.org or the discussion space in the course, and we can take a look, and if we figure out that it is an actual reproducible problem, then we'll go ahead and make sure that we've got a bug report in GitHub. But I'm not aware of any bugs of that nature being requested, and being posted, and I've certainly never encountered it myself. So yeah, it's a little mysterious, I guess, Dennis and Allison, what you're seeing exactly. But if we can figure out how to reproduce it, we can get a bug report in. All right, I see Frank's got another question, but before I go there, I just want to come back because I did see another question from Marla. I'm making sure I didn't miss something else. Okay, I may have missed something else, but I definitely got Marla's. Atava, and why to use it and not. Oh, okay. So, all right. So, let's talk about this. This is a religious issue. So she's talking about using the symbol 8VB, which is a modern invention that some editors or some textbook writers have started using like within the last maybe 50 years. But historically, 8VB is not a thing. It has somehow become ingrained in popular culture now, but check scores more than 100 years old, and you will see plain 8 is by far the most common. 8VA is often seen for instead of just a plain 8, and it is also used below. 8VA means octava, tava, VA for va. It doesn't mean alto, but at some point someone has decided to reinvent music notation to use 8VB, and it is now kind of common in music of the last 50 years or so to use VB, but it is not traditional. So that is that is something to like do some research on if you have doubts about, but I've done the research and it's absolutely true. So 8VB is not recommended by any major publisher, not recommended in Behind Bars, not recommended in any standard textbook on music engraving. So that is why there is not an entry for it on the palettes, because they don't want to encourage people to use it. It's not recommended. But if you have some special need to use it, you can certainly get it there. So what I'm going to do is select that 8 marking and come over to the Properties panel, and then under Text, notice it says Ottava here. If I put in Ottava VB, no, that's not it. 8VB. I have to remember what the specific symbol is, but there's a specific symbol syntax that you can put in there to get the VB in there. But I just can't remember what it is. First of all, let me make sure. Right now it says show numbers only. If I turn that off so that it's not showing numbers only, let me actually delete that one and add it again, just because I've been messing with it. I'm going to add that thing again, select that range. In this workspace, I haven't added my lines palette, but it's in the pitch palette, and I'll add this 8 below, and I will click this thing, go to the properties, turn off show numbers only, and you'll see 8VA. This is what textbooks will tell you is correct. I've never seen 8VA below. I've only seen 8 below. And in modern scores, I've occasionally seen 8VB. But if you want it to be 8VB, let's see if I come over to the text now. Ottava, yeah, I wish I could remember the special syntax. Ottava. B. Ottava. Man, it's something. Bassa? Yeah. There's some magic syntax that will cause it to put that in there. Now, you can certainly put the VB after, but then it'll be in like plain, boring font, and you don't want that. You want the special symbol. I'm going to find that. I'm going to find that since there's I see, Frank, your question here or comment or whatever it is, so I'm going to talk about that in a second, because this is a little, looks like it's getting a little outside the scope of MuseScore, but into file management. But I'm going to look up in the MuseScore, in the source, to see what the magic thing is. So I'm going to search in the code, and I'm going to search in here for Bassa and see what the magic symbol is. I'm searching in the code, looking for, oh, here it is. Ottava Bassa Alt. Ottava, okay. Ottava Bassa BA. Ottava Bassa BA. Okay, Ottava Bassa BA. Let's try that. Ottava Bassa BA. Select this guy, come back to the text section. Ottava Bassa BA. Well, it's got to be a capital. Come on, I'm typing what it says. Oh, Ottava Bassa. Ha! There it is. I love it when things finally work. That's BA. I think you want VB. So let's try that. VB. There's the one. Ottava Bassa VB. There you go. So if you want that symbol, put it in there. But again, recommend against it. It is not actually standard, even though some recent textbooks will talk about it. So the thing is, okay, so the norm is 8. Putting it above means octave above. Putting it below means octave below. That's supposed to be universal. Above means an octave higher. Below means an octave lower. So it doesn't matter what clef it's on. Doesn't matter what staff it's on. Putting the line above means an octave higher. Putting it below the notes means an octave lower. With just an 8. That's the that's the official way to do this. All right. So yeah, you can hunt and do research on this, and you will see ridiculously long religious wars fought about this on the Music Engraving Tips site, the Facebook group, and other places where people will say, "Oh, such and such an editor did it this way on the such and such a score or whatever," but yeah, no, the overwhelming thing among professional editors is not to use that. It doesn't actually it's just not something that was traditionally used. Although I will say the harp literature is not my forte, and I could imagine why it might possibly, because first of all, this marking is very rare, even in piano music, because realistically, the bottom notes of the piano are not so low that you can't do them just with ledger lines, and they're not used that often. So it's actually not that common to even show the octave lines down here. A lot of editors will just use the ledger lines, but the ones that don't mostly just use the 8 and occasionally 8 VA. All right. Frank is asking about zipping. Uh, the functioning logic for. Oh, I see what you're saying. So, yeah, so I can't. So Frank, if you are trying to um, incorporate sounds with a file, that just isn't a thing. I mean, you could include the sound font with the file in another zip file, then and put them in separate folders, then have someone unzip it and have it go to the right places. But 2 months from now, MuseScore 4.2 will be out, and then you won't have to worry about this. So I'm going to suggest you don't worry about it. So Brian, yes, your question got missed. So tell me, let's see if I find it. Your question, Brian. Here we go. Um, Alternate 4 4 and 5 4. Yeah, all right. I don't have a great answer for you. Um, so the question, first of all, of how should you do it? If it's really alternating 4 4 and 4 5 4 literally throughout the piece, then I will recommend not showing it all the time, making them invisible, I think. Um, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it. Other people might have stronger feelings, but I want to show a couple tricks. So here's one trick. I want to enter my time signature here, and I'll enter it right here. I'm going to enter a new time signature here. I'm going to say create time signature, and I'll make it 9/4. And I'm going to tell it to display as 4 plus 5 over 4. All right. Oh, I keep adding. I keep forgetting. Add here adds it to the palette. That is not what I want. I don't want two of these in the palette. So let me click one and delete it. Or click one, delete it. All right, now I have that 4 plus 5 over 4, and I can enter my notes. And then I can add little fake internal bar lines, right? I can go to the properties panel, no, the properties panel, the palettes panel, and add fake bar lines. But when you do that, oops, I thought it added before I guess it adds after. I thought it added before the selected note, but what do I know? I just wrote some of the code. So yeah, you can do this, and I think I can expand that bar line. Apparently you have to do fancy things to get it to do the right stuff. So those internal bar lines are kind of a pain. But anyhow, that's a possibility. But even if you don't do that, you could still then split the measure for real here. So if I control click that bar line, it'll split the measure there. And now it's done that. So I think of that as the easiest way to do it. And now I can go do the same thing here. Control, click the bar line. And so this allows you to have one time signature that says 4 plus 5 over 4, but then have the measures actually alternate because they're really 9/4 measures. So that's probably the simplest way to do it, assuming that you're okay just showing a single time signature up front, and that's how I would show it. If it's a short passage in a longer piece, I wouldn't do that, though. I would show the time signature changes personally. So there you go. Yeah, so Frank, I guess I'm not sure totally what you're asking about, but I would ask about it on the support forum or in the discussion space for the course. All right, wrapping up here, but I will, look and see if I've missed something else here. But with the program, oh yeah, I guess I don't know, Frank. I mean, if it's on Windows, you could package the MSI file, you download the MSI file from MuseScore.org. But again, I don't know. If you want to manage your own distribution system, you have to figure that out. I don't have any brilliant insights into that. So yeah, this idea of the alternating time signature stuff is it's messy. I say I don't have any strong opinions because it's going to be messy and hard to read no matter what. Steven's suggesting just show the explicit changes, and I'm not going to disagree. I don't like this because then some random measure I look at it, I don't know how to interpret it. I need context to understand it. Yeah, I don't have great answers. I'm going to take your word for it that it really is 4 plus 5 and not 3 3 3, in which case you could just call it 3 4 and be done with it. Or 9 4, but 9 4 is not going to be fun to read either because it's too long to parse the rhythms. So I just don't have a good answer for you. But either doing what I'm doing here or using the explicit time signatures, I'm afraid, is probably the way. If you want to use the explicit time signatures, let me show you a quick little trick here. This is a good one to know about. I'm going to add my 4 4, and then add my 5 4. I can then, I think, Control Shift drag that 4 4 over here. No? Okay, I thought that was going to work, but never mind. I lied. It's not going to work. I thought that was going to work, so no, you're just going to have to do a lot of clicking. What you could do is, nope, yeah, you just have to click a lot. Can you get dotted bar lines? Certainly. Once you've selected a bar line, come over to the Properties panel and Style, Dotted. You can also add them directly from the palettes. In the palettes, under the bar lines palette, there's a dashed one here, there's a dotted one there. So, and that will add it across all the staves. So, there you go. All right, well, my venture of doing the cafe from my backyard has succeeded, I would say. Are you hearing the music, by the way, and does it sound at all normal? Does it sound decent? Does it, because I'm doing this differently in a way that probably works and work okay. But in any case, thanks for being here, and thanks for all the questions. And I think I got to most of them. If not, awesome to the community. And well, yeah, I think the screen share audio actually works well. I might start using it more often, but we'll see. It has downsides because then if I have, like when I do the office hours and I have other people speaking to them. Music masterclass tomorrow. We're going to have a lot of fun. We'll get into very common, do some exercises, do some ear training with them, look at some music. So you can all make it. I don't mean to do that, but I'll do that. So hope to see most of you tomorrow. If not, next week here for the cafe. See you later. Goodbye.